Hi, I'm John Tyner, owner and CEO of Tyner Property Management. We manage about 800 properties in the greater Sacramento area, and I wanted to get out with some information to answer questions with regard to the new bills that were passed that will put a stay on evictions. The stay on evictions applies to tenants who can't pay the rent due to being laid off as a result of the coronavirus, or a reduction of hours related to the coronavirus, or substantial medical costs related to the coronavirus. The executive order says nothing in this order shall relieve a tenant of the obligation to pay rent, nor restrict a landlord's ability to cover rent due. There's a similar and overlapping ordinance that was passed by the City Council of Sacramento, and this applies to Sacramento City properties only. And it says that tenants must notify their landlord in writing before the rent is due, provide verifiable documentation of the reason, and pay the portion of the rent that they are able to pay, quote unquote. The city ordinance will remain in effect until the termination of the local health public emergency is declared by the Sacramento County Public Health Officer. Once the public health emergency is terminated, tenants shall have 120 days to pay back their unpaid rent. The moratorium on evictions will end after 120 days. So what does this mean to tenants? Number one, it means if you can pay your rent, you need to pay your rent. There's no free rent, no forgiveness of rent in any of these provisions. If you get behind during this coronavirus crisis, you will need to make it up. So you need to communicate with your landlords right away. I suggest before the rent is even due, why you're going to be delinquent on part of all of the rent, how that relates to the coronavirus, and how you expect to be able to pay back and catch up. These provisions do not protect you from being evicted forever. Eventually, if you're behind on the rent, you will be evicted. And an eviction is a nightmare on a tenant's record, especially in a tight rental market like we have here in Sacramento. If you have an eviction, it'll haunt you for 7 years, and it'll make it very difficult, if not impossible, for you to rent another property. And what does this mean to landlords? Well, it means that it's possible that some of our tenants are not going to be able to pay on time. And if they don't, it may take 4 to 6 months to evict them. I would expect that tenants who have a history of paying on time before this crisis will figure out a way to keep their word and pay back the rent that's due. I think on the other hand, there will be some tenants who will try to take advantage of the situation and stop paying rent and get 4 to 6 months behind before we're able to actually get them out of the property. That's a real possibility that some landlords will need to prepare for. Under these provisions, you have protection from foreclosure. If your tenant doesn't pay you, and that is a result of them not being able to pay because of the coronavirus, you can let your lender know that, and they will not foreclose on you until this crisis has gone through and tenants had a chance to pay you back and you have a chance to pay them back. I suspect that it may still affect your payment history and your credit, but you won't lose the property as we go through this glitch. If you do need to proceed with an eviction, don't do it yourself. Go see an attorney, a good eviction attorney, and let them advise you on the best practices and the best way to go through the process. Even before this crisis, due to the rent control laws, evictions had to be kind of engineered by attorneys. The climate in court for eviction court is very different than it used to be prior to 2020.